get this set up. Ooh. Okay. Great. I'm just going to move this out the way. Perfect. Thank you. So thanks so much, Jess, for inviting me to come and speak today about Sustainable South Hams and our education and youth engagement event that we're planning for next year, for February 2024. So I feel like a little bit of an imposter here today because I'm not an outdoor educator, I'm not an environmental educator. My work is very much in communities, working on projects to do with climate and nature. So one of my hats that I wear is to coordinate a local grassroots action group here in my town of Kingsbridge. So within that role, we work on projects around sort of waste reduction through repair, some things to do with home energy, and we run an annual nature festival as well. Just a little bit more about me. I also have an academic interest in studying climate and nature. I'm currently studying a postgrad at the Centre for Alternative Technology in climate adaptation and behaviour change. So we'll soon to be researching the conditions in which we kind of create these transformational shifts in behaviour that we need in order to decarbonise our communities. But I'm here today very much in my Sustainable South Hams role. So I'll tell you a little bit about us. Some of you might know about Sustainable South Hams, some of you might not. But we are a district-wide community interest company that aims to inspire, connect and support local nature and climate action. So we work across our whole district and we work predominantly with groups that are focused on sustainability. So these are kind of change makers within communities who really want to mobilise action and kind of get projects going around climate and nature. So one of our big aims is to share resources, to share ideas, to share plans, to really kind of amplify and accelerate action happening on the ground. The groups that we work with, they really vary in size and scope. So some of our local groups in our network are really, really small and they might focus on a single issue. It might be water quality or a particular species. And other groups like my own, we take quite a broad approach and we work across a lot of different themes. So this is just some of the team. This predated my time with Sustainable South Hams, so I'm not there, but you might recognise some of the faces. And just to point out, the lovely lady in the yellow high-vis, that's our CEO, that's Jane Nichols, who kind of really helped to get the group off the ground and has spent lots of years kind of building relationships to really accelerate what she's doing here. Just to say as well that we're partnered with our district council, South Hams District Council, to support their work, basically where it intersects with community action on climate and nature. And they've provided some core funding for us and we collaborate on various projects. So these are some of the ways that Sustainable South Hams kind of aims to support communities to take action on climate and nature. Basically, we work with community groups and group leaders to share knowledge and create connections. So it's kind of all about resource sharing, cross-pollinating, not having to reinvent the wheel so that groups can really quickly get projects off the ground. So one way that we've done that is through the website, which contains lots of brilliant information about projects and inspiring resources. And we've also got a great parish map on there of the South Hams. Your districts might have something like this too, but you can go in, you can have a look at each parish and you can see where they're at with their sort of climate and nature action plans, whether they've declared an emergency, that kind of thing. We also run assemblies, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today, specifically about education and youth. So we've done a couple in the past. We've had an assembly all about community engagement and one all about rivers, which some of you may have attended. It was a fantastic event and inspired lots and lots of action. So really great. And we also run various events as well, sort of meetings for change makers and field trips and that kind of thing. So out of the 62 parishes in the South Hams, we've got 48 of them signed up as members of Sustainable South Hams in our network, which is brilliant. So across all of those 48 parishes, that works out at about 1,500 volunteers that we're somehow connected into, which is Really amazing. So just to point out a kind of really broad vision for sustainable South Hams is to make the South Hams an exemplar region for action on climate and nature. And within the context of what I'm talking about today, we're really aware that to actually make this happen, we need to get much better at involving and empowering young people in action for climate and nature. So it's a really huge area of work for us. It's been a long time coming, but it's definitely time for us to start making those connections with sort of education projects that are supporting young people. So just invited me here today specifically to talk about our Education and Youth Engagement Assembly, which is taking place in February next year. So this event will be all about connecting community groups that are focused on sustainability with schools, colleges, organisations, projects, anyone kind of working in the broad field of youth engagement and sort of climate and nature education. And our purpose is really to support and inspire action by sharing what's already been done really successfully. So our assemblies are kind of about storytelling, really. It's about telling stories of really successful projects and actions, and kind of learning from behavioural science. We know that people are much more likely to take action for climate and nature through stories and through hearing about inspiring action, rather than kind of being bashed over the head with climate science or kind of like a focus on issues or even appealing to emotions. We know that it's action and stories of action and success that kind of creates that positive loop of further action. So that's sort of the aim and the ethos really of an assembly. This one on education and youth engagement will be all about showcasing exemplar projects that have done exactly that, successful action for climate and nature. So we found a structure that sort of really works for us. We've done a couple of these before now. The days tend to run between 10 and 3. We have our inspiring talks, our project showcases in the morning in a big sort of conference room or school hall. We get 200 people together in the room and kind of listen to what each other has been doing. Then we have a period for kind of looking at displays, connecting with each other, cross-pollinating ideas. And then the afternoon is always breakout rooms and kind of thematic workshops. And we found that works for us. So we shall be replicating that with our Education and Youth Engagement Assembly next year. So our very big overarching aim, and I'm sure this is consistent with kind of what Need is doing, to encourage and support a generation of globally aware citizens who feel both able and motivated to take action in their local areas on the global issues that we face. And you can see here, these are some lovely photos of some of previous events from Sustainable South Hams groups, but you can just by kind of glancing at the pictures, you can see that involvement of children and young people is a challenge for us. So definitely something that we really need to get better at. I'm just going to pop this out the way. Great, so there are loads of reasons why we're choosing to kind of pull on this thread of youth engagement and kind of connecting with educators, but just to go through a couple of sort of really key motivations for us about why we're actually doing this. So the first one is that our groups in our network have told us that they want it. So we know that they really want to engage with younger people. We know that they want to connect better with schools. And we want to share how to do that, but to do it well. So in a way that is actually beneficial for everyone involved. We really don't want to actually encourage every small sustainability group going and picking up the phone to their local school and just wanting to go in and do a talk about something. We really want to find ways of working collaboratively that are really, really beneficial on all sides. Participation, widening participation for young people in climate and nature work and reaching social tipping points is a huge, huge motivator for us. And we know we need to get better our groups are not representative of our populations, we don't have enough young people engaging, and just learning from sort of organisations like Devon Wildlife Trust, who use a social tipping point of 25% of a community needing to be engaged in a behaviour before it becomes the norm. Clearly, if you're aiming for that kind of transformational change, you need everyone on board, and that includes children and young people and families. So huge motivator. And also just working to remove some of the barriers to participation, like why don't young people come and get involved in our projects or our events? Obviously there's heaps of studies and models of participation out there that explain why it's so vital, but we're kind of hoping that we can use this project, we can use community groups as an example of how to get better at opening the door, widening participation and widening access. So we'd also love to focus on kind of creating more connection between classroom and community. There are, as you know, amazing things happening to do with nature and the environment and education all across Devon, but sometimes these things happen in isolation and without necessarily sharing ideas and resources. So we hope that an assembly like this will really help to join the dots within our region and really encourage partnership working. And we know that community groups are kind of this vehicle for offering lots of amazing opportunities for learning outside of the classroom. We've got lots of amazing projects on the go. And we know that school staff are under huge amounts of pressure, and lots of us kind of link in with eco groups and eco councils within schools, and the fact that any teacher ever manages to set up an eco group within their school is just miraculous, because there is so much time pressure on resources. So we want to think about how we can use community groups that are already established to provide opportunities for learning in the field and learning out in the community as well. Climate and eco-anxiety, huge driver for this work. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that this is a huge issue, but we do know that for young people, well, for people generally, if we're feeling climate anxiety, eco-anxiety and overwhelm, when we see examples of success and when we feel connected to our wider communities, it really helps to create more resilience and well-being, and it can kind of shift us out of despair and into active, hopeful action. And just to point out, quite a recent study in the Lancet in 2021, they actually surveyed 10,000 young people 16 to 24 across 10 countries, the UK being one of them. And they found that 59% were extremely worried, not just moderately worried, extremely worried about climate change. 75% said that the future is frightening, and 45% said that their negative feelings about climate change actually impacted their daily life, which is huge. It's huge. So the more we can offer opportunities for hopeful action within our communities, hopefully we can help to alleviate some of that eco-anxiety that's happening within our groups of young people. We also know that we really need to widen the scope of our projects, of what we're doing as sustainability groups. So our groups do tend to be made up of predominantly older people who are quite well resourced. That's a really powerful demographic for taking action and a massive force for good. But of course, the subject matter that's focused on and the kind of lens through which we see the world is very slanted to that group's interests and capabilities. So projects tend to focus on things like growing mini meadows, or low carbon heating, or home efficiency for homeowners. But of course, that's not the full picture. That's not incorporating what younger people might want to focus on for climate and nature. And purely anecdotally, from discussions that we've had and from looking at young climate and nature influencers on Instagram, we know that their lens is actually really different, and that young people are generally interested in things that are more within their sphere of interest and influence. So things like sustainable fashion, our throwaway culture. They're often much more interested in climate justice and protest and other forms of activism. So we want to try and make sure that our sustainability groups are finding all the different ways in a community to kind of connect to those personal motivations that encourage people to change. So we do need to broaden our themes, we need to broaden the scope of what we're working on. And finally, nature connection. Absolutely preaching to the converted here, but we would love to encourage the groups in our district to provide more opportunities for young people to connect to nature, with nature connectedness being, of course, a key indicator for actually taking more action on climate and nature. So again, sort of learning from behavioural science, research has shown that the higher you are on that scale of nature connectedness, the more likely you are to take further action within your life to do with climate and nature, whether that's behaviour, shifting your lifestyle or changing a behaviour, or getting involved in activism, or getting involved in a project. So just a little bit about what our event will actually be like. A bit about our ethos. So we really want the event to be reciprocal. We do not want it to be about going into schools and kind of doing two. We want it to be very much about creating opportunities to do things with, together, to collaborate, and finding the benefits on all sides, as I mentioned before, whether that's getting young people involved in a project and then in return providing references for university or an employer. There are lots and lots of options, but reciprocity is really key. We want the event to be co-created. So really want to make sure that young people are involved in the kind of focus, the themes that we might pick at and look at, even some of the speakers that we might invite along. We're hoping that the process of creating the assembly itself will be an example of co-creation and widening participation in decision making. And it's going to be very action oriented. So as I mentioned before, it's not about necessarily looking at the issues to do with climate and nature within our communities and within our district. It's about pulling out the stories of positive action, of success and inspiring projects. But a real challenge for us in scoping this project, and perhaps this is something that you can help with in the Q&A, we've gone out and done a fair bit of consultation and we've had lots and lots of discussions, and our scope just kind of keeps growing and growing. So our challenge is to really try and define our parameters now and really clarify that scope a little bit. So thinking about, you know, what is our definition of education? What's a young person? You know, it's at 16 to 24, or and what do we even mean by engagement? So before we go any further, we're going to spend a bit of time refining that. So the outcomes are sort of intended, hoped for outcomes. Firstly, we'll expect the unexpected. You never quite know what's going to happen, what kind of alchemy will happen when you stick 200 really passionate people in a room together. So we'll be very open and flexible to seeing what action comes out of this. But we do have some ideas of things that we're really hoping for. So for ourselves personally, we would love for this project and for this event to lead to the creation of a youth advisory panel for sustainable South Hams. So we really want young people to be involved in decision making, in setting the agenda for the projects that we're kind of spreading through the district. We really are hoping for better connectivity between projects and groups and educators within our area, and to be able to provide more opportunity for learning outside of schools. So yeah, providing those kind of projects or trips or kind of citizen science activities that are actually going on right within the heart of communities, so we can learn together across generations. So getting intergenerational learning happening is also a really big aim of ours. So the event itself is going to be on Saturday the 24th of February next year. we are just working on our venue. It will most likely be in a college, so hopefully Ivy Bridge Community College or Kingsbridge Community College, just because the facilities just really work for something like this. And we'd love to connect more. So if you have kind of thoughts about this, if you'd like to come along, we would love to have you there. If you are a sort of exemplar project, if you've been doing amazing work, either across Devon or specifically within our region, we'd really love to hear from you. And please tell us, you know, who do you think we need to connect with, and how do we do this, and what do we need to deliver? So thank you. That's it. That's me. That's my email address there. If you did want to connect and send me some ideas, I would really appreciate it. Thank you. I will stop screen sharing.
Thank you so much, Rosa. I'm
No
sure
worries.
everyone, as well as me, have found it incredibly inspiring. And I've seen some of your colleagues kind of out and about at various events. But yeah, I think you're really, you know, hitting the nail on the head when it comes to connection and joined up thinking. And hopefully, you know, that'll be really exciting and something that Need can support going forward in whatever capacity you'd like us to.
Yes, please. Great.
So, does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Mirella.
Yes, hi, Rosa.
Hi, hello.
Thanks so much. It's awesome to hear what you guys are up to and to see. Yeah, I love the fact that you would have that voice represented. So important. I certainly wanted to hear more about it, you know, in terms of the showcasing of projects. One thing in particular, I work at the Sept, by the way, Library of Things in South Devon, mobile Library of Things, and we've been also connecting with repair cafes. And what we've noticed is that you were talking about intergenerational sharing knowledge, is that the people who tend to be volunteering in repair cafes are the older generation, and the youth are not learning the skills that are related to repairing. And part of funding bids we are working on at the very minute is to create some sort of apprenticeship program. And I'm curious if that has been considered in terms of like, what are the employable skills that young people are keen to learn? Is this something that even in their, you know, in the fields, like as in the turbulent field of being a young person, that they might be considering, like, what can, not don't want to learn, but that like definitely needed? Because I would hope that as awareness expands, people would be more inclined to repair things over time rather than just replace it, you know, in the long-term vision. So I'm just wondering how this connection can be strengthened.
We're wondering that too. I'm really hoping that some of these answers will come out of this event when we start to connect different projects and see where the successes are, where people have managed to work across generations. But repair cafes, for sure, it feels like there's a lot of scope within that particular area of work to connect, you know, students taking design and tech in schools and in colleges with these amazing skilled volunteers who give up their time to repair. It's something that I've not managed to work on yet, even within my own repair cafe, and I'm really keen to learn how to do it. So maybe you could come along and talk about what you're doing with the Share Shed and the repair cafes and that work between apprenticeships.
But yeah, it's just really great, and I'm certainly keen to, you know, like you're saying, learn together about what would be useful, yeah, for the young people too, what they're keen on learning.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a Devon-wide need to kind of connect up the transition groups to try and see if there's a way that that younger people can get engaged, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Louise, you've had your hand up.
Hi, morning or afternoon, everyone. So my name is Louise Flagg. I am the Partnerships Officer for North Devon Voluntary Services, and I have a second hat. I also work in the outdoor industry as a head of centre for an outdoor environmental residential centre. So I have a bit of foot in both camps. Just in terms of the Partnership Officer's role, I don't know how many of you have heard of the platform called Devon Connect. But this platform is administered by the voluntary and community sector, and it's an online platform for linking your activities, events, and volunteer opportunities to what's going on in the wider community, so your general public, if you like. It has several campaigns, one of which is called Youth Matters. So thanks, Tom, for shoving that on there. One of the things that we've been doing in recent months is linking to our local secondary school college and setting up what we're calling a volunteer hub for the students. So that volunteer hub is linking to their enrichment program. So the students are, especially those that are college age, if you like, have to do a certain number of hours to qualify, and they're not always timetabled with their lectures or their classes to meet those hours. So one of the things that the college does is offer an enrichment program which allows those students to sign up for additional activities. So we've been looking at having a volunteer hub as one of those additional activities. And what that would mean is the our local organisations who are interested in offering volunteering opportunities, community connection volunteering opportunities to our young people can post on Devon Connect, link it to the campaign that is called Youth Matters, and then the school college can promote those particular things that are available to the students. So that's a particular way that we're linking, which Devon Connect is right across Devon. So South Hams has its own VCS administrator that would be able to support you with getting, one, your information onto Devon Connect so people can find it, and two, getting that link to the Youth Matters campaign. If your South Hams person cannot help you, I can. So you can always email me and I will help you to do that. So that's one way of being actually very proactive in terms of linking to the young people within North Devon. We've also got a project here called the CALO project that has been set up to research young people's aspirations and needs and desires in the local area. So at the moment, there are two, what they're calling inner circles, which are made up of young people aged between, I think the youngest is about 12 actually, but the idea really was probably 16 to 25, but they have gone 12 years. One in Barnstable and one in Bideford. And the questions that they were asked was basically, what are their concerns? And yes, obviously, we know that climate change is a big thing. But two of the things that came up, which are the two that these two hubs are focusing on, is about their work prospects and about community inclusion. So those two elements are key in terms of the young people's concerns, if you like, at the moment. So I think, if we can think about linking into those two elements of concern, that might be useful. The CALO project also has what they call a wide circle, big circle, which is about the organisations that might be able to make change to support those young people in the concerns that they have. CALO is a funded project, and thanks, Tom. And so it's a way that our local organisations can engage with the young people directly and find out their concerns and needs and so forth. So it's a direct link into those small circle groups of young people. we've been looking at how we can engage our organisations into encouraging more young people to be socially engaged with our community. So as we know, you know, the volunteering element can quite often be made up of older people, but it's how to get those younger people engaged and wanting to be involved. So one of those ways is through the college that we've been looking at. But we've also been looking at some of the projects that NDVS host or support that are working with young people. So I see Joe's here, so we support the A&B Nature's Footprints project. Hi, Joe. Calvert Trust, Southwest Coast Paths, the Youth Forum that is part of North Devon. So that's, you know, I think it is trying to find a way to link with your organisations that can then offer that bit of young person engagement. And one of the other things we found in terms of encouraging volunteering or engagement with the communities, it's difficult, isn't it, to use that terminology of volunteering, because young people sort of go, yeah, volunteering. You know, it's about the engagement with their communities. So I think if we can phrase it in that way, sometimes that sort of prompts them a little bit more. But I think friendship was also one of the big things. So they didn't want to volunteer by themselves. They wanted to have other people that they could go along to these things with, and it was part of you know, a social aspect of being involved with community engagement was also about being there with their friendship groups as well, which was quite interesting. One of the things that we sort of discovered from that. So yeah, that was just a little bit of feedback on that. And the other thing I was going to mention, you might have come across because it's being launched today, is the Department of Culture, Media and Sport have launched a £22 million funding stream that is all about creating youth work, additional activities and additional venues for youth work. So I think, you know, get in there quick because it's been launched today, and that funding is, I haven't looked at the criteria yet, but certainly it's something that we want to look at, how we can support the youth work element that's going on locally, because what we're hearing is that youth workers are really scant. Yeah, they're just not around. People can't appoint them, they're not available. And unfortunately, a lot of the courses in youth work development have been axed. So it's a really tricky area to access and to support. And I think, you know, that money may be a way of being able to do that. So I burbled a lot, so I'll shut up now.
No, it's all valuable burblings.
Thank you so much, Louise. I made loads of notes there, but I think there's some stuff in the chat, so I'll go through and pick up all of those links. That's brilliant. Thank you.
No problem. I'll put my email address in that chat as well. So if you can't have any joy from your CVS in South Hams, then please do come back to me, and I can help you, you know, support you to get onto the Devon Connect platform and use that the best way that you can.
Amazing. Thank you.
Louise is also a member of the steering group for NEED, so very, very important person here. Very valuable, at least. So I thought with our last sort of 20 minutes, I know it's always flies these sessions, but given that we're talking about kind of youth engagement and schools, I thought it'd be good to just, you know, everybody introduce themselves very, very quickly, but maybe just come up with some sort of best practice learned or something that you require support with. And then if I can collate that, then we can try and get a discussion going kind of offline. So one thing that potentially you need support with, that's different from anybody else, and second, kind of best practice learned, or you can just say something completely different, but it would be good just to know who you are and where you're from. Okay, Joe.
Can you hear that now? There we go.
Yeah, you can hear that.
Well, hello everyone. Put me right on the spot there. So I coordinate a project called the Finding Nature's Footprints project, which is a National Lottery Heritage Fund supported project up here in North Devon Coast AONB. There's lots of different aspects to it around sort of community wildlife mapping and surveying and things. But one area, and part of the reason I sort of sit in on Need, is we're very keen to gather enthusiasm and input from a young group, which we've started referring to as the AONB Environment Group. It was the Young Environment Group, but actually speaking to some of them, they didn't quite like being branded as the young aspect of it because it's theirs. So we've been working with those, and actually it's a lot of it's fallen on my colleague as a sort of her role throughout the project. But we've had, I think, really good success where we've got a group of individuals who have got involved in a number of different activities. But I think the idea is a sort of 15 to 25, which is an area, an age category, which personally I think kind of gets excluded a little bit. I used to work in an A-level college, and you kind of a lot of focus up to GCSEs, and then it's all exams, it's all focus. So this is about sort of building skills for the environmental sector at that age category. A sort of success and a learning point, I suppose, has been through our flexibility. And you're probably aware the real barriers with that age group is finding time when they're available, finding a time slot that works with them, but also overcoming things like transport issues. But actually, it really links to what everyone's just been saying about it being a social thing, and that's been a really big, powerful part of it. So, in amongst the activities which are academic based, surveys and things like that, we've been going for walks and having barbecues and an overnight camp and things like that. We used Skern came in on that and sort of supported those activities. So I think that's been a real success. I suppose the learning point there is we have to be flexible with it, and there are very few individuals who have turned up to everything, but I think we're accepting that that's going to be the case. They'll drop in when they want, and they'll sort of get involved as and when they want. What do I need help with? I need help on gathering more response. So actually, we've got this really good mailing list, and we've got lots of people, but what we struggle with is the contact and the communication with them. Lots of them don't respond to emails particularly well. We are working on establishing a WhatsApp group, but then you get the same characters talking and the rest being silent. And so any input you've got on how to communicate with a group of 15 to 25-year-olds and get response, that would be great.
Thank you, Joe. Alison, if you'd like to introduce yourself and just say one kind of point that you've learned in terms of best practice, and then maybe a bit of support that you need.
So my name is Alison Murray. I work on the education team at the Merron Fall Sanctuary. So we offer equine assisted services. Good practice. They keep coming back. Who could not enjoy being with our lovely horses? So we offer equine assisted learning, equine assisted wellbeing, and equine assisted activities for age 6 right through to 25. We also run Wellies for Wellness, which is for looked after children, doing a variety of outdoor activities. So what do we need help with? Spreading the word, I guess. We would really like to be able to email you our education pack, if that would be okay. If I do that to you, and then if anybody else wants it, they could get in touch with you. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to circulate.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Louise, did you have anything more to say on that point?
Sorry, I don't think so, other than obviously my other little hat, if you like, is linked to having an outdoor centre myself. So I don't think there's any asks or anything like that, but just as Jess said, being part of the steering group, it's not just being part of the voluntary sector in North Devon, but actually being a practitioner myself. So just to, as Jess mentioned, being part of the steering group, I just thought I would say that.
Thank you, Louise. Mirella, did you have anything that you would like to kind of share in terms of what you've learned and would like to give, or support that you particularly need?
Thanks, Jess. We haven't engaged with young people per se, not actively at least. Certainly not with through the shadow network of well-being. At the same time, I really appreciate just today this conversation gave me a lot of thoughts around it, and I certainly want to continue being part of these conversations and really kind of trying to do the best we can within our resources to support that evolution. So basically appreciate the opportunity and this conversation.
Thank you, Marilla. Do come back. Lucy.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy Watram. I work for Devon County Council in the Waste Education team, and on the community side I also am co-chair of our local sustainable groups.
I can't hear Lucy at all.
Yeah, sorry Lucy, your sound is a bit iffy.
That might help if I put my microphone down.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, quick intro again. I'm Lucy Watcher. I work for Devon County Council doing waste education work, but I also, in my spare time, I am co-chair of a local sustainability group. So we run a repair cafe and a community fridge. So I do intersect all sectors that we're discussing today, which is really interesting. Some best practice, I suppose, the most engagement we've had with, especially with kind of secondary age groups, primary age groups, come to us with school trips, and we get lots of primary schools asking for our workshops. Secondary schools are notoriously difficult to get into, but we have had success going through careers teachers and career events. So I think, as has already been pointed out, that sort of link with life skills and building skills for the future is definitely potential for us as environmental educators and as community workers to talk about in schools. The other thing we've had real success with waste education is linking with scout and guide groups. Incredibly passionate people who want to do lots of stuff with young people, and we have our own Scout and Guide badge as Recycle Devon. So if you're linked with that, then find that online. Yeah, support we need. Can't think of anything. Go to our website and book us. But yeah, we're probably overbooked already this year. So we get lots of interactions with kids. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to coming to your event, Rosa. That sounds really interesting.
Thank you, Lucy. Lucy also, if you don't get it already, collates and drafts the sustainability bulletin, which is really, really great. And has a good read in terms of funding and what's going on. And so do contact Lucy about that. And is also a valued member of the NEED steering group. Sally, good to see you. I can't hear you, Sally. No, can't hear you. We'll come back to you in a second. Jack.
Hi everyone. Thanks very much, Rosa, for a really interesting presentation and yeah, really interesting conversation around it so far. My name is Jack Wolfenden. I work with the North Devon Biosphere. I also work with the Braunton Countryside Centre as a project manager, and I'm also a trustee for a local community group as well in my village where I live in Lankey. The thing, I guess, that the share aspect that where I've found success, I guess, was choice with young people, and actually ownership, and being able to do projects where it's theirs is a thing. I mean, it sounds very very straightforward and common, but you know, sometimes over missed, and I've missed it out a few times. The thing that I'd like to learn, I guess, is how people are measuring their success with community. How are you kind of gathering that information? What are the questions you're asking? Who's involved? And at what level? Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. That was really useful. Sorry, Madly typing some notes, but yeah, impact is really massively important. And like you say, it can be particularly difficult with community groups because a lot of it is qualitative, but I think that's still valuable. I think it would be good to have a session at some point on kind of monitoring and valuation for this sort of group. And I know there's a few people who give that sort of give that fairly voluntarily. So yeah, thanks for raising that point. Annie, good to see you.
Hi, so I'm also working at Devon County Council with Beth Bird. I've only recently started, I've actually only recently graduated, so I guess my experience of the topic is more of a young person. And I would say if I had anything to add, it would be so throughout uni, I organised the what's called Nature Conservation Society and got young people, uni age students, out into different community groups. We worked with, I think it was about 15 different community groups, and I think the feedback that I got was the hardest thing in terms of going out and working with them was the transport thing. It's just really difficult. If the place doesn't have a train station or something to get out, if you can't afford a car. Another thing was just, I think, feeling quite different from the older volunteers. Obviously, so many people in the conservation sector, so lovely, so chatty, always mean well. I think there were certain things about like money issues of if we needed to bring a certain amount of kit. A lot of students obviously don't have like a certain brand of walking boots or whatever is needed, or if we need to bring our own tools, anything like that. I think also some of the comments some people found a bit difficult. I think there was often quite a bit of sexism in that the lads we would take with us were often given a lot of the tasks, and then I remember a lot of the women would then be asked to make teas and coffees and stuff, and I'm sure that's just a couple of the community outdoor groups. And then one thing about trying to get feedback back on when people come to events and stuff is we found Instagram polls to be the best way of getting feedback. So yeah.
Well, that's really useful, Annie. Thank you so much. I'd like to sort of consider myself a young person, but like 40 staring me at the face, and I don't think I can really go into that. So it's good to actually have more links to actual young people. So Nikki, good to see you.
Hiya, hello, hi everybody. I'm afraid I missed a little bit, but I did enjoy Rose's presentation. I watched all of that. I got a bit distracted, but I am working with Sustainable South Hams on the community composting side, and one of your colleagues, Rosa, is visiting the project that I set up in Chagford today. Jane is visiting Chagford, hoping to have a cup of tea with her a bit later. She's looking at our shops here. So we've got the Proper Job Resource Centre and all the rest of it. I've been working with Lucy at Devon. Well, I was working with Devon County Council on the schools and composting. So I think my thing is that don't forget that schools have fantastic resources very often. Not all of them do, but a lot of schools have fantastic resources, and it's just getting the kids out in their actual schools, which is the biggest challenge. So what we've found, I'm also the chair of the Growing Devon Schools Partnership, which has been kind of mothballed recently. There's not been very much activity at all. But I was out and about the weekend before last doing some stuff. But our whole philosophy is to work with the teachers rather than the children. So rather than trying to engage, and because you can do endless kind of assemblies and workshops with kids, but if you can get the teachers on board and then get them to do it, that would be my biggest tip. It's a really difficult nut to crack. Very, very, very hard, especially we're finding with the multi-academy trust side of things happening. But if you can get into the mats and you can get to the sort of leaders of the mat, then it can cascade down. And the bit of news I wanted to give you is I've got to go actually very, very soon because I'm meeting with Beth Hamer, who's working with the I think it's the Dartmoor mat. They have just bought a school farm. They just bought all this land to do a farm, to have a farm. And I went to their inaugural meeting. There were lots and lots of people there, councillors and local community groups and wildlife trusts and all sorts of people. So they've got a fantastic opportunity for, I think it's, I forget how many schools they've got. They've got a lot of schools in that, Matt, who are all going to be able to use this farm, and they're still working out ways of how that's going to work. But I guess the key thing is, unless you get the teachers on board and all the teaching staff, then it's not going to, they're not going to get out there. They're not going to take them out there. They're not going to get involved. So I've found working with kids is easy. It's great. I love it. But it's a kind of one-off thing, you know, one assembly, one workshop, and then you're gone. And it's the teachers that you need to get on board.
Yeah, completely. I've definitely seen that in what I do as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think last but not least, Tom, unless I've unless I've missed out on anybody. Oh, Angela, Tom, would you like to go forward?
I was prepared to be last and least then, but just least. That's all right.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed the headset game we've had going on, folks. Like Sam's headset. Otherwise, I wanted to join in with the air traffic controller, like Radio 1 on. I was just going to mention a couple of things. So I work up at Skern Lodge, an outdoor activities and environmental education centre based on the banks of Appledore. We've been trading for about 40 or 50 years, there or thereabouts, and got very, very loyal customer base across school groups, but also adult learners, ranging from corporate work parties, mental health and social care referrals, and all sorts. We've got probably about 160 learners on site at the moment. So we've got two primary school groups, one day visit around green social prescribing, and a college group so we're busy, and our contact time with young learners is throughout the year, and we're bringing people out and about in Norwich and North Devon daily. I was just going to pick up on a couple of points. Joe raised a really good point about scheduling. Yeah, it's hard. So lining up your contact time with the schools or youth groups or whatever is compromise. It'll never be the right one. And especially for us, where tide tends to be everybody's biggest boss. You know, you can't go and do a beach sweep if the tide's in, but that doesn't quite line up with when the year sixes are allowed out, etc., etc. So scheduling and resourcing is quite tricky. My advice there would just be to think about where, you know, wherever your setting is, where are the young people congregating already? If there's already a pre-existing touch point where a lot of your learners are already frequenting, the scheduling problems evaporate because they're already going there. So yeah, reaching out to sort of local youth service or whatever would be handy, or non-mainstream education delivery. So up near me here, we've got Wings in Devon, and they offer great tuition for youngsters who have exited more often than not mainstream education. And if you can get in there, that's great. Just a point, I know, you know, Louise is an expert in this area in particular, is around the linking up of sustainability and green education alongside mental health and well-being. So if you can reach out to those practitioners, there's for sure some great talent and skills on outside of our immediate industry, maybe. And so if you can get in with some green and blue social prescribers in order to have a look at, you know, the climate change anxiety and things like that, that's some good inroads there. And lastly, my most sort of my longest point perhaps is right at the start there was a brief mention on the idea of employable skills, and we could link that around green tutoring, sustainable tuition, things like that. There's a massive narrative around employable skills and work readiness with young people. So my suggestion there is to explore what green skills actually are and what a green tech economy looks like. You can probably hear a fire alarm going off. I'll be quick. My advice there would be to engage with local employers. Ask them how recruitment is going. Do they have a full house? So recruitment in the Southwest is really hard. So what jobs are they hoping to recruit for in the next 5 years? And you can sort of work backwards from there. You can have a chat with colleges. Are they laying on any courses equipping students to be prepared for employment around the green skills revolution? Locally to us, Petrock's a really good example of that, and that's North Devon College, if anybody's not familiar with it. And Caroline, who's the director of HE, and Bill, who's their vice principal, are really good at engaging with employers through careers fairs, a bit like what Lucy was saying. So, for example, they've been talking with Devon Torridge District Council about the Clean Maritime Centre based in Appledore, which will be a big lead in clean propulsion within Torridge, but also maritime tech. It's really embarrassing because when that opens, it's going to be empty because there's no pipeline of just training and skills development all the way up to employment. So it's quite likely that when that centre opens, everybody in an entry-level job will be outside of Torridge or indeed outside of the county. So they're designing a sustainability undergraduate course now, have recruited, have students, so they'll be ready to walk into employment at that venue in 4 years' time, 3-4 years' time. And again, just work backwards from there. So working with secondary schools, have they set up their environmental sustainability hub for those UCAS personal statements and whatnot? Keep going back. So primary schools, are they doing inspiring activities? And I know Jack and Joe are experts in that field there. But it's just reviewing that pipeline within your setting and where you can play a part in that. But that's ended, that's good. But it is just engaging with employers. Are they struggling with employment? Are they looking for green skills? And it could be you laying on that course and seeing where you can play a part in that. Cheers, folks.
Thank you loads, Tom. If people were starting to go to sleep, then Tom woke them up there, not only with his voice, but with the fire alarm there. So thank you very much, Tom. A brilliant supporter of need. A couple more. We've got Mark there.
Hello.
Hi, Mark. Welcome.
Can you say, hi. So I haven't been to one of these for about pre-COVID, but so I run the share shed. So Morella is my boss. Is she gone now? I can tell you what.
Yeah, I think she has.
So we have been into schools. I've done assemblies, that kind of thing. We have run activities in schools. Couple of things. So with the share shed, support we need. So I want to go into a lot more colleges. We've been talking about that age, youth. And if anyone's got any direct contacts into the colleges, would be really helpful. Otherwise, I'll just have to go via the usual channels. And just, spread the word really about the share shed. But most of my career has been in environmental education and earth education. So I'm still running events, family events. I was at Dartington Hall a day a week until a couple of weeks ago. You might have heard they're going through another financial crisis. And I'm one of 3 earth education trainers in the UK. So I run workshops for adults, for teachers. As Nikki was saying, if you can get the teachers switched on, then it's a lot more effective than working with individual kids. So the earth education, we have a program for teenagers. It took about 15 years to develop. The tip there would be, we ended up centering it all around money and food. So they got 100,000 solarians to spend, sunlight energy money, and they got to spend it on pizzas. But somebody mentioned earlier about giving them choices. The whole program is all about perception and choice. So they can choose what they want, but they have to pay for it in terms of their energy use. So that was the tip. So make sure you have food at this conference. You can pay them to come. So I think that's it really at the moment. If anybody's interested in any workshops on earth education, please get in touch.
Thanks, Mark. Really interesting to hear from you. I'd like to know more about earth education. Maybe you'd like to come and speak at Need one time.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Juliet.
Hello.
Hello.
I've just been multitasking, so sorry. But yeah, brilliant talk, Rosa. Sorry, and we've just taken the solar panels off the boat, so ready of the storm. So yeah, so I completely resonate with what Nikki was saying about teachers and getting teachers on board. We do loads with Petrock and South Devon College.
You just want to introduce yourself, Juliet?
Sorry?
You just want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Juliet from Sea Dream Education and Sea Dream Environment. So Sea Dream Education does school outreach and produces education resources. And Sea Dream Environment is a new registered charity. It's scientist-led, and we're doing lots of different science projects. We're looking at eDNA of jellyfish, and we're doing, hopefully soon, seagrass mapping and monitoring, and yeah, things like that. And we yeah, go into lots of scouts, cubs, that kind of community group. Also, there's surprisingly quite a lot of youth clubs might come back, which is lovely to see after COVID. Really important to do that, and we kind of pop in on the youth club sessions and take some of our resources like VR headsets with locally filmed things to inspire, and we kind of do soft skills and things help with CVs and things, help to give opportunities so that we can help people put good, interesting things on their CVs and teach them some skills.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Juliet. That's really valuable. I don't know if we still got Sally. Let's see, Sally. Sally, did you get your sound back? No. Oh, did you want to do a little introduction or email me and I'll ping it around? Well, thank you so much, everyone. Oh, there we've got a little summary there from Sally in the chat. By the looks of it. Thank you, Sally. Really important contact from Exeter University in talking about sort of education and how to get environmental education in schools in a meaningful way. I'll just, we're slightly over time, but it's really good to see you all, and I think these sessions are useful just to kind of remember who's out there and to get support and feedback from everybody. So just going to quickly finish on a couple of hats that I do. So one is co-founder of Planet and People, which is delivering environmental education workshops on broad themes across Devon, but also work in various kind of community groups and initiatives as kind of coordinator and sustainability consultant, I suppose. So, and I absolutely reiterate what everybody's saying here. It's really kind of important to engage both the young people and their supervisors and their peers, because that's it's really powerful for continuity. No one raised the issue of funding, but I'm sure that will come up in a future session. We've found it quite difficult, or more difficult getting funding this year than previously, and some big funds have kind of taken out schools funding out of the equation. So and is going to the schools directly, but then the schools don't necessarily have the skills or capacity to apply for those funds. So that's kind of adds another barrier. But I just really want to say that I feel inspired by what you're all doing, because this is a really active, proactive county and a really, really important area of work, as you all know. And I'll put some of these together and I'll just circulate it around so everybody can see, as well as the recording. But thank you ever so much. The next session will be the last Tuesday of October, where hopefully we're going to get Bev from Farmwise to come and speak to us. And then the following month, the 28th of November, is when we're going to have our kind of virtual conference, which will be a half-day session on the 28th of November from 9:30 till 12:30, where we're focusing on a national perspective. So if anybody has got anybody that they think would like to come and be have a guest slot or facilitator on the Need Autumn Conference, that would be brilliant. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. And do know that there is also a WhatsApp group, so if you want to be part of the WhatsApp group, just let me know. And yeah, we're always here to support you in the meantime, so please do reach out through Facebook or email or phone or any of the other millions of ways of contacting people. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great, and have this kind of lunch and learn session where we can all connect, at least for a little bit every month. Thank you for the work you're doing. Bye then.